coming here. It's really great to see everybody here, to see that everybody wants to make a difference here in our community, and also give your voice here in District 5 in the Antelope Valley. I feel that we are underserved, we're forgotten about, and we want to have a voice, and we want change to happen here in the Antelope Valley. So today this is our welcoming and our opening, and we're gonna do things. We're gonna have a little poem and spoken word, and then we're gonna have a great panel of leaders here in the community that have been advocating on our behalf. And together, from this moment forward, we want to unify ourselves together so that we can work together and make change here in the community. All right? So let's start out with John. Come on, Pastor John.
I think I'm pretty loud.
Okay.
Outside of my wife says I'm pretty loud.
Up to you.
So I preach all the time. My name is John, Revelator Irving from Renaissance Church. Renaissance is a creative arts movement powered by three engines: Renaissance Church, Renaissance Art Center, and Renaissance Entertainment Company. Before I started this ministry and movement, I was a special ed teacher for 10 years with LACO, Los Angeles County Office of Education. I worked in women's probation camps during that time period, and I worked with a lot of our young ladies, and I wrote this poem for them because there was a high number of prostitution, things of that nature, and I wanted them to feel better about themselves, and it's called Dark Women. It simply goes, to my dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women, you are dark like coal that comes from mining, but in a piece of coal you can find a diamond. Beautiful black gold girl, God's designing. Girl, you know they no one of a kind into my dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women. You are loud and vibrant, seldom silent. How God made it proud when He created my mother of man, for no man enters this world but through the womb of a girl. I'm celebrating my black pearls, need to be lifted up more. This world has never really cared for or been there for my dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women. You are appreciated, created by the Master. Dark berries, black cherries, traits from Africa, traits of an old culture. Dark noses, shoulder pop shapes, corn toes from working on their feet all day. Bruises, some of them get beat all day. The backbone of an oppressed culture. I'm close to my dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women. You are fine as wine and shape divine, but never appreciated for the thoughts in your mind. Men follow behind and say it's your behind, but I wonder what lies behind the dark woman's mind sometimes. In business, neglected, rejected, disrespected, hit on, spit on by hip-hop music. Dark women refuse it, set new standards, demand it, command it, make them ashamed to even think of calling you anything other than your name. Because dark women have powerful, powerful brains in Jesus' name. It's my dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women. You are not right for wearing your clothes so tight. Baby, 2 short skirts and belly button shirts arriving you. I want to see the guy in you. That's cleavage, more Jesus. Tight pants, not wise. Draws a man's eyes from your eyes to your thighs. Dark women, be wise. Recognize, realize, take pride, show class. They can't find God. Staring at you. Sorry, Bishop. Shoes. I'm just throwing out some clues, some spiritual truths tonight. Because God wants so much more. He expects so much more from us. And don't believe what you see on those screens. Don't open the queens into my and stay closed, unexposed, and keep your legs closed. And if you can't respect that, then he's got to go. Whoa, I'm talking to my dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women, me dark women. You are. Thank you very much for having me.
John agrees. The turn your phone ringers off, please, so they're not disturbing the meetings. Also, do we have anybody that needs interpretation in Spanish? We have the headsets. If you need that, please let us know. All right, great. So, I want to introduce the founder of JusticeLA, one of the founders, and one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors. And you know, we have the same last name because she's my niece. And so proud of her. I'm going to brag just one little quick second. Patrisse is leaving Wednesday to Australia to get the Australian Nobel Peace Prize. All right. Super humble. And I'm really thankful that she's coming up here and to help to support here in our community. We need the help, we need the support, we need the unity, we need to make change here, and it's going to start today. All right? So here's Patrisse.
Thanks for having me in the Valley, Auntie, the other Valley. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and I'm just really grateful to be here. I know there's families in the audience who've been directly impacted by sheriff violence, and I just want to give a lot of praise and honor to y'all who are in the audience who have either seen your loved ones be brutalized, harmed, or killed by the sheriff's department, and to still be here and present is a really, really big deal. The work that we have been doing for, I would say, the last 7 years, but more recently, we've started a coalition called JusticeLA. We have a few of our coalition members in the audience. Raise your hand if you're a coalition member. Raise your hand high. No one's going to see that up there. There's folks in the back. And we're hoping that from this town hall, the folks who co-sponsored this event in the Valley will also end up joining JusticeLA. We have one primary goal, and our goal is to stop this county from building a $3.5 billion jail. Yes. And reinvest those dollars back into our communities. Yes. What we've seen time and time again is a county elected officials that have completely neglected parts of Los Angeles. When I asked my auntie about doing a town hall, this is our first town hall, the JusticeLA town hall, in the Antelope Valley. That was on purpose, because I know folks don't come up here. I know the elected officials who are over this place don't come up here. So it was very important for me, who have loved ones who live up here, and have been following the way the sheriffs act up here, was to bring this conversation. Y'all are already having it, right? I'm not bringing nothing new, but what I'm trying to do is elevate that conversation here in the Valley. And so the program, we're going to spend about 30 minutes with the panelists to talk about, a lot of y'all know about what's happening, some of you don't, about how criminalization works here in the Antelope Valley, and how folks end up inside LA County jails. And then after that, we're going to spend some time meeting the families. Some of the families who've been impacted by a neglectful county. We got some dinner here too, making sure we feed y'all. And then we got a few cameras here, so some folks might ask for interviews. If you're interested, go for it. If you're not, totally understand. But this isn't a one-off. We're not just coming here doing the town hall and won't see you again. We're going to build and develop a relationship. And like I said, hopefully many of you all will join JusticeLA. So thank you so much for having us here. I know this county is big enough, it feels like we're in a whole other place. So I don't take it lightly when we're welcomed into people's hoods. And so I just want to be grateful for that. And I'm going to give it back to my auntie so she can tell us where we're going next.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with our panel, and each of these individuals are leaders in the community, and they oversee an organization that's been making a difference. And what they're going to do is they're going to be touching on panel topics that are the sheriff's violence, criminalization of youth through the foster care, and just the criminalization in general, our unfunded resources in the Antelope Valley, checkpoints, drivers, all of those things. So they're going to give you a little bit about what they've been doing, what they've seen, what they've been working on, and then we'll have a question and answer part. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the Antelope Valley ACLU, and we're going to start with Ruth.
Hi everybody, thank you for being here. Can you see me? We recently formed the ACLU AV chapter. I've been with the ACLU for the past 7 years now, and also been working with the NLG, the National Lawyer Guild. We've been doing a lot of different work in the Antelope Valley, but one of the things that we had worked in the Antelope Valley was the confiscation of the vehicles, and that was impounding the vehicles at the DUI checkpoints, and that was for unlicensed drivers. I don't know if you remember, but about 2 to 3 years ago, actually since 5 years ago, they used to do, they still do, but they would do DUI checkpoints, and before it was just DUI checkpoints. Now finally we got them to say DUI driver's license checkpoint, because that's actually what they were doing. They were looking for unlicensed drivers, and there were a lot of undocumented individuals that couldn't get driver's license because they didn't have documents. But through doing all these checkpoints, we figured out and find out that it wasn't just the undocumented community in the Antelope Valley that was being targeted, but also low-income families, because they didn't have the money to pay for the tickets for their vehicles or to pay to renew their license. So their vehicles were being impounded, and they were not being told that during a DUI checkpoint, the vehicle would only be impounded overnight, or that they had until the end of the DUI checkpoint. So, and for those that don't know, when you do get stopped without a driver's license, it's a 30-day hold. So you're talking about $150, $100 to $1,800 to get that vehicle back, when some of these vehicles are not even worth that. So therefore, a lot of people were losing their vehicles. And I'm talking about seeing about 20 towing companies, or 20 towing trucks from 2 different companies here in the Antelope Valley, and just impounding vehicles all night. And then they would get, these individuals would get, they would get a bill when the cars were being sold for any money that they would owe, because they would sell it for under whatever the amount was that they owe. When we went over to the Lancaster towing company, we found out that they can actually hold your vehicle for 120 days. So that's $35 per day for $120. And if that car doesn't sell, guess what? You guys will get a bill saying, you owe me, you lost your vehicle, but you still owe us money, and we'll send you to collections and so forth. We brought all of this to both sheriff departments, Lancaster and Palmdale, and they didn't understand. One of the captains in Palmdale said that maybe we should get a rides for the people that didn't have the license. They should get rides when they would go to work. Well, some of these individuals use their vehicles to go cut the grass, and what are they going to do? Get rides from one house to another house to another house? It's impossible. We saw many African Americans mother with their babies being taken out of the vehicle and leaving stranded on the streets. Older people, I know with my group, Outlet, we used to drive the vehicles across with our driver's license to ensure that their vehicle wouldn't be impounded. They do get a ticket, okay, but they wouldn't get their vehicles impounded. So we would drive these vehicles and then walk back. And a couple of times we had the officers that would follow us to ensure that we were actually driving the vehicle across. Then also we had the change of the AB 53, which gave a very good opportunity, because now they had a way to get out. Before, they would do the checkpoints and they wouldn't give you a way to get out, so you wouldn't enter into the checkpoints. Now they have to do it, but they were still putting officers to follow you. So a lot of people would get nervous and they still would get stopped. So we realized in, everything that was happening. So now I am happy to say we still see those, impounds, but now we only see 2 towing trucks compared to 20 that we used to see about 5 years ago. So with that, we were gracious enough to have the NLG here with the attorneys that we did threaten the local sheriff station to file lawsuits. We did file a lot of complaints. We took all of this all the way to Sacramento to Kamala Harris when she used to be our attorney general before. And she listened, and I showed her all the videos because I videotaped everything. You know, and now the Lancaster finally has lights that you can see the DUI checkpoint driver's license. You can see it. Before they didn't used to have it. So we finally show them, and our argument is if you're targeting, if you want to catch people that are driving under the influence, let's go ahead and put this DUI checkpoints on Lancaster Boulevard where the bars are. Let's go ahead and put them right here by the mall where the bars are. But they're all on the east side in Lancaster. Gaston and Avenue K. We see it here on Palmdale, on 47. So all in Palmdale Boulevard. And then let's go ahead and start these DUI checkpoints at 11, 12 o'clock. Why at 6 when people are getting out of work? You know? Right. And if you notice now they actually say, and I have seen this, maybe they'll catch one person that is drunk driving, under the influence. And one is too many. But that person happens to have a driver's license.
Right.
And is not an undocumented person, and is not a person of color. So I'm sorry to say that, they got to change the things. So that's something that the Antelope Valley ACLU is still doing, among other things. Thank you.
So how many of you were aware that that was actually happening in the Antelope Valley? That's a problem. That's an issue. I actually seen it at the elementary schools where the sheriff would hang out for the parents to pick up their children and then impound their car and take the car seat and sit it out on the street. That's not how you build a healthy community. That's not how we advocate, and that's some of the things that we want to have change. Next, we're going to have Ansar Muhammad. He's from the Antelope Valley Nation of Islam.
Before I even say a little bit about the nation, I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't thank Patrisse for deputizing our friend Waunette to be the lead organizer for JusticeLA Antelope Valley. I would also be remiss in my duty if I didn't acknowledge some of my comrades who just a few years ago assembled under the title the Community Action League. This energy reminds me, Brother Jesse, Brother Farrell, and Brother Nigel, and our comrade Emmett, who's not here, but this energy reminds me of what we had to do to organize ourselves across religious lines, across any affiliation socially. We determined, 5 of us determined, that enough was enough. Our people was being taken advantage of under the Section 8 HUD program. Law enforcement for many years was violating the Section 8 voucher holdings. And 5 of us came together to organize. And to make a long story short, we was victorious. Yes. Because now what I was told in the report, a lawsuit was filed. Palmdale and Lancaster and the Sheriff Department now have to change policy as it relates to how they address the low-income residents in AD. So I want to thank you all. Most of you all know who the Nation of Islam is. We are representatives of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He is the most controversial black man, not only in the country, but in the world. And if he walked in here right now, your perception of him would change immediately. Because he's not anti-Semitic. He does not teach hate. And I would not follow a man that was teaching hate. Because it's not in my nature, and it's not in your nature, and it's not in his nature to hate anything about it. So we're representing Farrakhan in the Antelope Valley. Why? Because every so many days, weeks, and months, we hear about black and brown youth in particular being killed, not only by law enforcement, but by each other. And so we must stop the inward fighting. We must stop the hatred amongst ourselves. But we also got to hold accountable law enforcement. So we're dealing with a war on two fronts. We have to stop the killing amongst ourselves, which is going to require a legitimate, candid discussion on why our young people hate each other. But we also got to have a conversation with law enforcement too. Just recently, we lost 2 Latino brothers at a local house party. How many of y'all heard about it? 119, 118. Both of them, I'm sure they woke up not to die. I'm sure they dressed up to go to the house party. But somebody was at the house party with a firearm. And so what we want to do, the Nation of Islam, we want to be put on notice by law enforcement and the mayor and the city manager and anybody else that know about the house party that's going to happen. So we can deplore some fearless men in there. The fearless that is willing to stand between the gangs and the gun. Because if we hadn't got that call for the captain, that's my captain right there, but Greg, by the way. If we hadn't got that call that night, we would have deplored some fearless men and women that would have went to the party voluntarily and identified this person who had murder on his mind. So I'm hoping that we can continue, Sister Waunette, after today. I would like for us to create a coalition. Because if we don't get out of this box of my way or no way, we're never going to get anything done up here. Did y'all hear me? Yes. We have to have new leadership. And the old leadership must begin to open up the doors that's necessary for us to walk through.
Yes.
Okay? Not taking nothing away from the leadership that was here before we got here. But we need the whole guard now to turn over the keys.
Yes.
Because each one of us pay taxes.
Yes, sir.
And I'm damned if I'm going to keep paying taxes and being pimped at the same time. Knowing that we're here, and by the way, in my closing, we're going to have more black and brown people moving here. You know why? Because Los Angeles is being super hyper gentrified. Why? Because the Rams is there. The Chargers is there. The Dodgers is going to have a World Series tomorrow. So our people is coming to the Antelope Valley. They're going to San Bernardino. They're going to Moreno Valley. And if we don't have a coalition in place to help them to navigate it, then we're going to see and hear about more murders. So thank you, Waunette. I love it. I'm rolling with this woman. That's what I'm rolling with.
Thank you, Ansar.
Thank you.
He touched on a lot of things. I work with youth, and I've been working with youth for the last 5 years regarding drugs and alcohol. And we as parents really have to make a stand, and we have to come up with some decisions. Because these sheriffs are not here to benefit us or help our children, help our families. They're here to lock us up.
That's right.
And if they put another prison here for women and it's not filled, guess who's about to get arrested?
Come on now.
Women of color.
Right.
To fill it up, to make money. So next we're going to have Barron Garner come up and speak about mass incarceration. Barron's been holding it down for us here in the Antelope Valley, so we'll let him speak on all the things he's been doing. Thank you, Barron.
Greetings, man. All right.
Oh, it wasn't on when I was talking.
Right on. Hey, greetings. Glad all y'all came out. Thank you very much, Waunette and Patrisse. I really appreciate y'all, and I'm glad I can be here today. So a couple things, man. Number one, I want to discuss, and let me know if I need to wrap it up. Don't be shy if I'm talking too much. First thing I want to discuss is mass incarceration, what it is, why it's happening on a nationwide level, and then bring it down to this community, and then talk about some of the things the Stop Mass Incarceration Network has been involved in. So when we talk about mass incarceration, when we look at this prison system, there's no surprise who's up in there, okay? It's filled up with black and brown bodies, okay? And the roots to this monstrosity lie in the history of this country. So understand that this is no mistake. We're not, just like Waunette said, these police, these pigs is here to lock us up. That's what they're here for. That's what they always been here for. That is the nature of this system. And if we attack this problem, we discuss this problem starting from any other place, we ain't going nowhere. Okay, so we have to understand what the nature of this system is and why this is going down. So if we take it back to what they call deindustrialization, as they start moving these big old businesses and factories out of the cities, what they left behind was a bunch of jobless black folks, okay, in the big cities in the United States. Now I happen to be from Los Angeles, okay? Now I'm gonna run through it real quick. So what ends up happening, man, a drug economy was imposed on these cities, okay? And people in power either at best looked away or probably participated in bringing them drugs in here. And then what happened is they busted the youth when they used them and they sold them, okay? And that starts in the early 70s. And they start, you know, there's a strong parallel if you look back to Reconstruction. After they let all these slaves off the plantation and they didn't know what to do with them, they started saying it's against the law not to have a job. They started saying it's against the law to spit on the ground or look at white women. You dig what I'm saying? So they set up a situation in order to criminalize black people. You dig what I'm talking about? So, and then, so the strong parallels then to today. So these are the roots of what's happening. So all over the country, it's not just here. This isn't an Antelope Valley problem. This is a national problem. Okay, so wherever you go, these prisons are full with black and brown people. Why? Man, this system does not have any future for our youth. Okay, when these kids get out of high school, I'm an educator as well, by the way. So when these youngsters get out of high school, ain't gonna be no jobs waiting for the masses of them. Okay, like it was with, with my father who worked down on Alameda on some factory when there was some factories over there, but that ain't there no more. Okay, so so when we look here and we see this disproportionate sentencing, when we see black and brown youth being railroaded into prisons, they stack these charges up on them and scare these youngsters so bad that they say, I did it, please take me to jail. You dig what I'm talking about? Because what they tell them is, say you did it, and you can do a couple years, or don't say you did it, or we're gonna lock you up and throw away the key. And what are poor folks supposed to do? How are we supposed to stand up to this system? Okay, so this is no accident. Okay, this is not something that we just stumbled upon, some kind of accident of history. Okay, so this is what brings us here today. So anybody that doesn't, look, if this system doesn't have a place for you, that's what this prison system is for. You have millions of young black men that are literally unemployable. You dig what I'm saying? Not because, there's not jobs for everybody. So who's the least employable, man? These young black and brown men. And then they label them. Once you label somebody as a felon, a criminal, even illegal, gang member, these are terms that are used to make it okay to take away the rights from these people. The first thing they say when these pigs blow somebody away, what do they say? Criminal, gang member, to make you say, oh, well, he must have deserved it. You dig what I'm saying? This is what's being done to our people every single day. So the phenomenon of mass incarceration and the phenomenon of police brutality and police murder, these things are not separate, okay? Because a lot of times they go on in the same place. It goes down in the prison where people are beat down and brutalized just like they are in the street, okay? So that brings us to, where we are now. And we look at these prisons, it's full of mentally ill people. They call what they call the county jail the biggest mental health institution or something like that. Man, this is a joke. This is absolutely crazy. You got prisons full of mentally ill people that don't even know what's going on, and they being brutalized, man. This is some crazy stuff. So if this system doesn't have room for you, they got somewhere for you. They gonna cycle your behind in and out of this prison. They gonna put you on parole. They gonna label you as something. Man, I work at a school. I seen young men, solid young men, not the hardest workers, but they come to class and they passing with their little D's and C's and get busted for having a lighter or smoking a cigarette in the bathroom, and they take them away to do a 9-month bid and pull him up out of school. Man, this is the craziest stuff. I mean, on its face, this nation is guilty of some savagery. If this was going on anywhere else, we would be talking about a dictatorship or something like that, or some kind of human rights violation. This is absolute madness, man, and it's very, very important for us to recognize where this is coming from, okay? This is not, you know, some police officer accidentally did this. This is a system. This is a system, and it's operating the way it's supposed to do. Okay, I'm looking back at this family right here that we've been working close with. I just met where a young man was shot down on a loud music call. Why? If this call came from, instead of 10th Street East, if this call came from 30th Street West or Quartz Hill somewhere, would police be coming up to a house on some loud music with their guns out to begin with? Okay, so the roots of this is no mistake. Black and brown people are systematically undervalued. These police is scared of us. Okay, just like in the schools, the teachers, the security, they literally scared of the youth. We wonder why these youth is acting so crazy, because the people that's supposed to be in charge of them are afraid of them. Yeah. You dig what I'm saying? So this is a system, and it goes deep into the roots of, you know, the United States, of capitalism, and this is a system that doesn't need to be, we need to be discussing how to dismantle this entire system brick by brick, because we're gonna keep on doing this. We're gonna keep on doing this. My daddy told me about the savagery of the police in the 70s in Los Angeles. My granddaddy told me about the savagery of the police in Alabama, where he's from. And then I grew up and watched Los Angeles burn. You dig what I'm talking about? I stood on my grandma's steps and counted the fires. You dig what I'm saying? And now these youth are growing up and they on TV, they watch Ferguson burn. What was another one? Charlotte, St. Louis, and they seeing all this stuff. So if we don't understand that the roots of this problem and quit trying to clip at the leaves, this system needs to be dug up, completely up out the ground. You dig what I'm talking about? So stop mass incarceration network. For the last, few years, I think it was 2014 or something like that, 2015, we pretty much, for the most part, been trying to raise consciousness among the people. And, we've been in the streets primarily. We work really closely with the Browning family and also with the Garcia Ruizes. So, man, we actually, right here, about a year ago, we did the People's Open Mic to kick off a coalition dealing with exactly what we're discussing now. This jail plan, okay, and I'm gonna sit down. But what I want people to understand, that even though we're talking about a jail plan, it's not about this jail or that jail. It's about a paradigm that says solve the social problems by locking up the victims. We can't serve people with mental health, so we throw them in jail. We don't have no jobs or anything for these black youth, so we throw them in jail. You dig what I'm saying? We look at something like illegal immigration, which is really should be considered an administrative issue, is considered breaking the law for trying to live, man, and trying to survive. If this stuff is not absolutely ridiculous on its face and worth standing up for and worth dying for, then we the ones with the problem. You dig what I'm talking about? So, I'm gonna wrap it up on that. Thank you very much.
One of the reasons why I have been an advocate in the community is because I'm a mother.
I have a black son, you know, and
Say that, girl.
and watching them just be killed. I mean, when we're in the NAACP, we see them stop. I stop too. They say, what are you doing? I'm watching to see what you're doing. I want to see what's going on here. We have to be advocates for our children. We have to be advocates for our community. We have to be advocates for all of these children. We have to leave a community where they can feel safe. They can't even walk down the street. You drive a particular car, they're going to stop you, harass you, lay you out on the street, frisk you, all of that. And together we have to come together and unify ourselves to come up against the police and the sheriff, the county supervisors, and all the rest of them. We can't be separate. We gotta unify ourselves, work together on one accord to make change. Like I said, I've been working in the schools and working in the community and advocating to prevent drug and alcohol. And in doing that, we realized we talked about mental health. We have the worst health disparity of all of LA County. And all they do is continue to dump more problems here in our community and not deal with any of those problems. You want to bring another jail here, you haven't even fixed the jails you have here. We can find other things to do with the money, millions of dollars to fix our community. We need to be advocating for our community and we need them to be listening to us. So next we're going to have César come up from the Antelope Valley LULAC, and he's going to be talking to us about what happens to a community when it's underserved, underfunded, and underappreciated.
Good evening, everyone. My name is César Miguel. I'm the president of our local LULAC chapter. LULAC is the nation's oldest Latin American civil rights organization. It was actually founded in South Texas to deal with issues of discrimination that were coming from white folk, I guess, in South Texas. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say about Miraloma and disparities in the Antelope Valley, one of the things that I realized was how much of a part Miraloma was in my life. I'm an undocumented person. I came from Mexico in '94, and in the Antelope Valley where I've been raised, I grew up in Lancaster all my life. The only place where you could access something as basic as vaccines to go to school was at the high desert health facility, conveniently located right next to Miraloma jail. I grew up scared to death of getting my school vaccines, seeing then INS and then ICE buses take people from Miraloma to be deported. I remember when I was recently graduated from high school and I read, I think it was an Associated Press wire, it was a paragraph long, where a man died in Miraloma when the jackhammer that he was using as part of the prison work crew hit an electrical line. Miraloma is the head of a chain of misery that goes from Lancaster all the way to Adelanto. This is a community which our supervisors and our local officials, from Congress all the way to the Assembly to our supervisors, they've never been able to find the cents on the dollar that we need to keep people alive. There was a recent study that came out, and I don't know if you know this. People in Sun Village, because we have people from Sun Village Women's Council here. People in Sun Village have the lowest life expectancy in the entire county. Wow. It's lower than the nation of Turkey. The city of Lancaster, which has a jail and a youth facility, has a lower life expectancy than Mexico. We have the highest infant mortality rates in this part of the county. It's abominable. And I think it's cynical. It's disgusting to see this jail being marketed and sold to my community as a women's mental health facility, when, I don't know if you knew this, last year 1 in 8 adults in the Antelope Valley was depressed. In 2015, over 1,000 calls were made to the sheriffs because people had killed themselves, had tried to kill themselves, or were having a mental health crisis. Wow. $3.5 billion is the low estimate about this jail's cost. Some people think it may be as high as $5 billion. $5 billion is exactly what the county spent on the entire Department of Mental Health.
Right.
It's concerning, to say the least. We have people dying of diabetes, a treatable illness, a chronic illness, a preventable illness, at rates that are eye-watering, the highest in the county. We have children in our community who graduate from school without basic literacy. A jail is a monument to the shame of a community. And it's not because of who's inside them, it's because of who built them.
That's right. Yeah.
I grew up in this community, not the community that some people speak about in the past, where it was a small town community that was semi-rural, where people rode their horses on Lancaster Boulevard. No, I came to this community when it was growing the fastest. I lived through the problems that this community has, and I have friends, I have family members, I have neighbors who have fallen victim to the prison industrial complex that never should have been in that position to begin with. We don't need jails. I've heard people say it's inevitable. This is a necessary thing. We're going to have people who need to go to jail. That's not true. People go to jail because we decide as a community, as leaders, that that's where they belong, and I disagree.
Right.
They call this women's prison an open campus, where women will be able to walk. Well, I wonder why we have prison campuses in this community but no university campus. When the supervisors were first debating this in 2014, 2013, there was a caravan that came from Linwood to Miraloma. I was at that event and I spoke then as well. It was actually the first time I had ever been on the jail campus itself, because all my life that place has stood for fear. It stood for suffering. And we've had 3 people killed in LA County jails that are already built.
Yeah.
We should tear down every single prison in this county, build parks, build schools, build adequate medical facilities, so that we don't have the highest infant death rate in the county. Why do we have 3 prison-like or prison facilities in this community but no university? Why do we only have 1 hospital with a trauma care center that we might lose?
Right.
We've been neglected, and that hasn't been accidental. They're building this prison for the same reason they originally built it in Linwood, because they think our communities are too either stupid or ignorant to object and to mobilize and to organize against it. That's not true.
Not true. Are we stupid? No. Are we ignorant? No. Do we want a prison here? No. All right. We're going to have Jesse come up, and he's going to talk about the court system, how it's imbalanced, how they've thrown out plea bargains to everybody of color. If you just walk in there. We actually had a person someone asked a question, they gave them an answer, and they were almost arrested. That's what's going on in our court system. So next, let's have V. Jesse Smith.
Hello. Come on, let's give God a hand clap tonight. Just for bringing us together in unity. I want to commend our sister receiving the Nobel Peace Prize from Australia. Go on, girl. Go on. Just want to shake hands with you. I won't hold you long. We got a lot to talk about tonight, and I want to hear some of your questions and comments as well. Just want to thank the organizers for this event. I am a member of the Community Action League and a member of the Way Center of Truth. I'm a pastor in the city of Palmdale and a former president of the NAACP, so I'm happy to be here tonight. I have a vested interest in this community. I have a vested interest in our people. I have a vested interest in making sure that our youth are protected and looked out for as we as elders in our community begin to grow and develop. I've learned in the ministry and also as a community activist that in order to defeat your enemy, you gotta first identify your enemy. Right. You can't just be fighting something and you don't know what you're fighting. It may be foreign to some of your ears, but let me say in all respect, to make it clear that the enemy that we fight is not a particular individual. Right. The enemy that we fight is white supremacy. Right. Let me be clear on what I mean by that. I'm not talking about just an ordinary white person. I'm talking about a system of belief that has been rooted and developed and grounded in this country that has an attitude that make people think that because you are a different color, or that because you are a different hue or come from a different community, you are less than those who are deemed to be superior in this community. We're dealing with a mental attitude. And if we can change the mental attitude, then we can change the system. Embedded in our Constitution, the 13th Amendment, is this concept called if you are convicted of a crime, you can now be still treated as a slave because you're now in the prison system. That's why slavery is so strong. So therefore, we got to identify the enemy that we're dealing with, which is white supremacy. Don't be afraid of that, because my white brothers and sisters, and I've been saying this with the unions that I'm with, you have to take a role as well. You got to step up, and when you see injustice from a white sheriff or a white police officer and they're perpetrating it's really incumbent upon you to step up and say, you know what you're doing is wrong. It's wrong. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that until we took on the sheriff system out here. People give me a lot of the credit, but I could not have done this without some strong brothers and sisters, certainly the individuals that Brother Ansar mentioned, but some of you who I see out here who joined us in the movement, who stood out on the courthouse. You were in front of the courthouse with us and the sheriff's station fighting for justice. And we were fighting what? To make sure that the Palmdale Sheriff Station as well as Lancaster Sheriff would stop profiling African Americans, Latino, and even poor white people who were on Section 8. You helped in that. We changed that process. How did we change it? We didn't do it just by talking. We did something that Ruth talked about. We saw it, but we also sued about it. We went through the system. And we sued the city of Lancaster and sued the city of Palmdale. That was our first battle. TCAL recognized that that could not be the only battle, because the sheriff's station is one issue. But there's another issue, which is the criminal courthouse. And so we had to first break down the walls. Break down the walls that we had with the sheriff's department. I lived next to sheriffs, but we never talked to each other, many of whom were white. I didn't know who they were, but I knew they were sheriffs, but they were afraid to talk to me. Why? White supremacy. That idea that what? I don't know who you are, you're a different color or a different hue from me, therefore I'm not going to communicate with you. We had to realize we got to break down the barrier. So what did we do? We not only sued, but out of that lawsuit, we created a settlement. And we said, you know what? We need to sit down with Lancaster Sheriff. We need to sit down with the Palmdale Sheriff, and we need to figure out, what are you afraid of? What is it that makes us fearful of you? It's because we're clearly going to articulate why we're fearful of you. So we want to know, what does that process look like? Let me close it up. We broke down, we sat down, we figured out what the issues were. Were they resolved totally? Absolutely not. We created what's called a Community Advisory Council. I hope some of you are aware of it. Those who are on that committee, some of them I saw here tonight. They're in Lancaster and Palmdale. Whenever you have a complaint about a sheriff's department, about a sheriff either in Lancaster or Palmdale, it is your responsibility to report it. Don't just say, okay, it happened to me, come to me and complain. I can only do but so much. Pharaoh can do but so much. All of us who sit up here, we can only do but so much. But what I've learned in this system of white supremacy is that they follow paper trails. That when you document certain information, you can also back it up in a court of law. So we encourage you, if an officer has been disrespectful to you, and listen to what I said, disrespectful, unprofessional, that is part of the settlement agreement that we have with the Department of Justice, that if they are disrespectful to you, that needs to be recorded. The Community Advisory Council, they are charged with the responsibility of looking at those reports every time they meet to find out who's making a complaint. Not only that, which officer is making a complaint, because we got some serious bad officers out here. We got some good ones too, but we got some bad ones that we need to identify, and we'll never be able to identify them if you don't make a complaint. Number two, once we realized the sheriff's department was a problem, we then went to the courthouse. That criminal courthouse is a nightmare. We got in trouble because we said it was a slave ship on dry land. I got in so much trouble with that. Pharaoh got in so much trouble with that. We got in so much trouble that it almost broke relationships that we were trying. But I believe in dealing with truth. White supremacy is real. The criminal justice system where black people are dying every single day and Latinos are being pulled in there with not only just with the cars, they're also being pulled because of their immigrant status. That is real.
And as a community, we got to collectively deal with it. And we can't deal with it just by ourselves.
Right.
That's why we need somebody like the LA Coalition for Justice to reach out to them, because they say, when you hurt, we hurt. And when they hurt, we hurt. And together, when we bring our power together, nobody can see any of our hurt, because each of our hurt is covered by each of our strengths. That's what makes us strong. We went to the criminal courthouse and almost done. We said, the way to stop black people and Latino people by going through the criminal courthouse, we got to stop them when they get arrested. That's how we stop it before they get in the criminal courthouse. Do you know every time you get arrested, the sheriff's department first has to make a complaint to the DA, and the DA then determines whether they're going to be prosecuted or not? But if we stop it at the sheriff's office, then we can stop it from getting into the criminal courthouse. Once it gets in the criminal courthouse, we literally can't do anything. Once the district attorney decides, you know what, we're going to file a charge, then almost our hands are tight. But if we can get it before it gets to the courthouse, that's when we can stop it. That's why we needed to break down the lack of communication with the sheriff's department. Even though I know they're under a system of white supremacy, I know we needed to sit down and dialogue rather than monologue. So we've been able to successfully, not all the time, but successfully stop people from being prosecuted in the district attorney's office. Why? Because we said, Captain there, the Lancaster of the sheriff, you know what, this individual doesn't need to go into the system. This young man, this young Latino brother and sister, we can stop it here. And we've been able to do that successfully, and sometimes we haven't been able to do it successfully. What's my point? We gotta start breaking down barriers and start working with each other. And yes, even though we're dealing with a system of white supremacy, we got to know how to deal with that system. Yes, I want to knock it out. Yes, I want to destroy it. But for right now, we got to figure out a way. How do we work with that? I told Captain Air, what we are engaged in is a system of adultery perpetuated by an illicit intercourse between injustice and immorality. That's what we're doing. That is the form of white supremacy. When we're able to deal with it from that level, then we can get in the courthouse and we can tell the district attorney, look, this brother shouldn't be prosecuted. This sister shouldn't be prosecuted. Let me close with this. When I say it's a system, watch this. I don't care if you're a black person and you're articulate and you come from Harvard. I don't care if you're a Latino brother and sister and you're smart, intelligent, you got your immigration status, and now you graduated from Yale. When you get in a system of power, when you get in a system of authority, don't ever think that you really have the power to make the kind of change that you want to change unless you work from it from a grassroots organization. Why? You have a beautiful, and I love my sister. I love her to death. Jackie Lacey, I love her. She's our sister. We need to work with her. But in all reality, out here in the Antelope Valley, we have more African American people being prosecuted than necessary. Why? Because what we have is a black face or a Latino face in a position of power, but still rooted in a system of white supremacy. Until you change that system, we're not going to change what's happening here.
One of the things that I've seen here that happen in the community is when you're an advocate, you speak up, you start suing cities, then the people are after you. The mayors are after you. They start finding pictures, putting them up of you, making it seem like you're a gang member or you did something wrong. It's nothing wrong for fighting for right. And that's what we have to do. We can't be silent. You got to follow the procedures to file a report, to complain against them. And we have to do that. We have to make a difference. What has happened is, through all of this process, we're seeing an influx of us being incarcerated, or we're seeing us being killed and victimized by the sheriff. So we have some families here today that actually want to share some of the things that happened to them in this system here in the Antelope Valley. And we really don't want that to happen to anyone else. And we really want to thank them for coming out ahead of time to being able to share what has happened to their family and how things will never be the same. So I'm not sure which family would like to come up. Come on.
Hi, I'm a little nervous, sorry. My name is Roberta. I'm the mother of the 17-year-old son who was shot by Palmdale Sheriff Station on June 22nd of this year. His name is Armando Garcia. The night of the incident, I wasn't even notified by officials that my son had been in an accident. A friend of his actually came knocking on the door and asked for me from my sister-in-law and was carrying my son's bloody shoes. When I went out, because I actually was just right up the street from where it happened, when I went out, they had already blocked off the area, and I was trying to get the deputy's attention to see what had happened to my son. And it took about 15 minutes or so, and finally one of the officers came and asked me what I wanted, and I said, what happened to my son? You know, it's my son. I heard something happened to him. And oh, well, there was, you know, the incident with the dog, and he was accidentally struck by a bullet. And he said, but he's okay, he'll be fine. And I asked, well, what hospital he's going to be at, and they sent me to Palmdale Regional. I then went home, grabbed my sister-in-law, we went to Palmdale Regional where they did not have my son. I started driving to Lancaster to AB. Meanwhile, I had my sister-in-law call over there to see if they had him. They did not have him. So I had to return to the scene of the crime, get the attention of the officers again, where they left me on the street for 15 minutes and then finally came back and said, oh, he's at AB. So we go there, and apparently 2 police officials were denying access to my son. They wanted to let me know if he was okay. That's all I wanted to know, if he was alive. But the officer told me he was going to be okay. So we're there from 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning up till 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon with no answers. As we're sitting there, you know, we're making all these phone calls to the higher people to see, you know, if someone can at least come out and talk to him. Even the doctor said that they had no access to my son. Wow. There was 2 police officers guarding the room, and that there was a nurse inside with them. So I was like, well, okay, well, does he at least have somebody looking after him? And they gave me a blank look, like, oh yeah, someone's looking after him. So the doctor finally comes out about, oh, I don't know who he was, but he was, after the staff that was already there changed, you know, to another staff. Yeah, they changed shift. They sent out the new people to come talk to me. Whoever the doctor or whatever it was, he came out and he introduced himself. He had a charge nurse, and he had said something, and we're like, okay, well, where is he? But under his breath, he said, I'm sorry for your loss. But he was looking around, and we're like, what? Excuse me? And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were somebody else. So it didn't register at the time. I found out my son was dead through a friend who was watching the Antelope Valley news as I was sitting there in the hospital waiting for an explanation. So not only did they keep me from saying my last possible goodbye in any kind of way, they still didn't give me answers. They still didn't let me go up in the back, because they still didn't even let me identify my son's body when it was time to. They still didn't even notify me that my son was dead, even after I told them I already knew. The only way, they didn't even say I'm sorry or anything. All they did was call me while I'm sitting there crying in the hospital already and tell me we need you to come down to Palmdale Station right away. And I already knew. I expected somebody to be waiting for me when I got there. And no, they had me sitting in the waiting room. And then they took me to the back room where I continued to sit and wait. I walked out
I don't blame you.
So about 5 or 6 hours later, I get a phone call, and to come back to Palmer Station. Apparently, the internal, whoever they are, the internal affairs were there. I asked them, "What do you want me to come down there for?" And they said, "Oh, well, we want to give you answers to some of the questions that you have." Little did I know, I get there, and they're asking me questions about how old was my son, what was he doing out so late, who was he hanging with, and I'm sitting there like, you're supposed to be giving me answers, like, you're supposed to tell me what happened that night. Then I asked to identify the body. They said, no, we have his fingerprints on file from his juvenile records, you don't need to identify his body. So my last goodbye was seeing my son in the casket.
Take your time, Mom.
Yeah. I don't know what happened that night, but under the things that have been found out, I think this was happening. He was shot deliberately. The dog got shot in the paw, and my son gets hit in the chest. There was still no communication with the officers. They still didn't notify me that my son was even dead. They just wanted me at the Pondo station.
My name is Amber Alcantar, and I'm Armando Garcia's aunt. And I've been by my sister-in-law's side the entire time since the knock on the door. The sheriffs have changed their stories more than once about what happened. When they first initially gave a statement to media, they called my nephew a suspect. He wasn't a suspect of anything. They made it seem like the dog was shot numerous times, or that they killed the dog. That's not what happened. The dog was shot once in its front left paw. That's it. But they had him, the dog, euthanized. You know, they gave us the runaround about what hospital he was at. I was actually waiting right there, and I spoke with the officers first. And I was trying to find out where my nephew was. They started questioning me about where he lived, who he lived with, if he lived right here. And I told them he lives with his mom. And they were like, well, where do they live? I said, you know what, she's coming up right now. You can ask her yourselves. I don't understand why they behaved in the manner that they did, but it's inhumane. We let the hospital know, we let the watch commander know that he was a minor, and they still didn't let his mom come in there with him. I don't understand. I really don't. My nephew was a good kid. He was very respectful, very loving, very kind. He cared about everybody. He was the type of person, he would help out anyone that needed help. Sorry. You know, since this has happened, the sheriffs have harassed our family. More than one occasion. They'll pull us over for no reason. One officer even almost hit my car because I was following her at the time, just to get to her. And I had a car full of kids. It's ridiculous. They have taken down his memorial site. When does anyone ever see a black and white unit taking down a memorial site? Or cleaning the sidewalk because the kids had did a memorial like spray painting thing, you know, and it was a black and white unit that came and took his memorial down. Normally, isn't it the city? But it wasn't the city that time. We were driving about a week after my nephew was killed. We were driving, and there was a cop coming, you know, the opposite direction, and shined his spotlight right at us. We couldn't even see for no reason, and he just kept going like nothing. We've had black and white units just sit outside of our houses, just posted. No reason. They don't get out. They don't say anything to anybody. And then the moment that we see them, then they take off. Like they want us to see them. We were, was it before we redid the memorial, or was it after? Okay, after we redid his memorial site, we were one night up there, you know, and because we go every night, we light his candles. Every night. We were over there, and there was, God, that night, like 20 to 30 cops. They had on their sirens, and they were doing donuts down where we can see them, down like a block, like 2 blocks away, huh?
20 cars were lined up on the sidewalk, and 4 were doing donuts.
Okay, 20 were lined up on the sidewalk, and then 4 were doing donuts. Then they were going back and forth, and I got part of it on a recording even. The moment that I pull out my phone though, guess what happens? They stop. They come, they've done numerous things like with making it unnecessarily making their presence be known to us when we're right there at his memorial site. Nobody's even told her that they're sorry.
Right.
Wow.
When the day that it happened, I went and I spoke to the media for her because she couldn't do it. And after I get done speaking to the media and I'm on the sidelines and I'm crying, a cop comes up. And you know, I'm short, so of course he's towering over me. And he puts one leg on the curb and he's like hovering over me and just starts chuckling in my face. And I had to sit there and take that. You know, my nephew, the only thing that he wanted to do was graduate high school so he could make his mom proud by being the first one to graduate. He wanted to make sure that his little brother didn't go down the wrong path, and that's all that mattered to him. He cared about his family so much and loved his family so much. And his goals in life were to make sure that his mom was proud of him and that his brother didn't end up going down the wrong path. And we had just been talking about it the night before it happened, like about his goals and what he wanted to do. And I told him, I was like, you know, we can plan this out. You could do this, you know? He was so excited. I'm sorry. The cops acted like my nephew, who was a victim, and mind you, their victim, was a criminal. They had the 2 deputies by his bedside, would not leave, would not let anybody in there. And for what? because I'm assuming they didn't want him to talk to anyone. Honestly. You know, we spoke at the oversight committee as well, and after that, let's just say their intimidation got pretty bad. I'm not gonna go into specifics about it, but they're playing hardball. But guess what? So are we, because we're not gonna give up.
No matter what they do to us, to our family, it's not going to stop us from fighting for justice for my nephew. I'll fight for justice. His mom will fight for justice. Our whole family will fight for justice until we take our last breath, if need be. They can't continue to keep being like this and treating the community the way that they do, because every life matters.
We're all going to be supporting her. It's not going to be just them by themselves. We're going to rally around and support and be there for them. That's unbelievable. I mean, no empathy, nothing.
And I just want to appreciate, like I said earlier, it's always the hardest for the families who've been most impacted to be in these meetings, to have to relive the stories. And it's bad enough that they lost their loved one, but then you have a local government agency that we pay for that treats them terribly, that gives them no answers, that has no transparency and no accountability. And the only way that we're going to seek accountability is through us. We make it happen. It's not going to be elected officials, unfortunately. It's going to be the people of the Antelope Valley, the people of LA County. So we stand with your family, and exactly like you said, we will fight for justice. JusticeLA launched our campaign at the end of September. The day we launched our campaign on September 26th, hours after we finalized the launch, we heard that someone in LA County Jail died. They said he died, they didn't actually say how he died, they said he was pepper sprayed, and then in the shower, he was found dead. For folks who've been inside jail, or folks who know how dirty the sheriffs play, what we've pieced together is Juan was probably pepper sprayed during a sheriff-deputy fight, in which the sheriffs probably killed him during the pepper spraying and beating him, took him into a shower, trying to wake him up, and then he didn't come to. The day after, the news talked about someone else who died. They didn't give the person's name. They didn't say how he died. But this family actually found our organization through another woman who lost her child inside the jails. I want to welcome up Tamika. She lost her son, Octavius Caldwell, on September 27th. And she's going to tell us her story.
How everybody doing? I want to thank Khan-Cullors for having us out here. September, my name is Alton Gunter. I'm Octavius Caldwell's little brother. And I'm here today supporting my mom every step of the way. September 27th, I was incarcerated myself. And I was calling, bugging my mom just for me to get up out of there. I'm like, I don't want to be here, Mom. I want to get out of here. Bail me out, bail me out. And Wednesday night, make a long story short, I was talking about my brother, because my brother, we had our ups and our downs. He stabbed me, and I was on life support before, so that's the whole reason he'd been in and out of the system for so many years. He'd been on parole, and because of his mental illness, he's a bipolar schizophrenic, and he has diabetes. So September 27th, I was talking about him. Something made me think about him that day. And I was talking about him, telling people that I forgive him for what he did. And I was talking to my mom, and she normally doesn't just cry out the blue. She always laughing, giggling, you know what I'm talking about? And this particular day, something wasn't right, and I felt it. And she was just telling me, son, I can't talk to you right now. I'll talk to you when you get out of here. I'm like, all right, Mom, well, give me a bottle and all that so I can have fun when I get out. So I'm thinking everything fine and dandy when I get out, and she just crushed my world when she told me. And it really messed me up when we sitting here thinking and asking, how did he pass? Like, what was the cause of death? Like I seen in the news that a dude was pepper sprayed, everybody told his story, but where's my brother's story? How did he pass? Just buried my brother Friday, October 20th, 4 days after my birthday. Nothing will ever be the same to me again, or to my mom. It's not too much support we have around here. I got just me and my mom, it's my baby mom, my 2 kids, and our other little family that we came out here. But I really and truly appreciate you for having us here. Because I'm not a big speaker, I really don't know how to speak. There's one more thing I want to say. I just hope that we can move forward with this and really get justice for everybody that suffered inside the men's Central County Jail, any jail, period. Because I know what it's like to be in there, and they don't treat you right at all. And I don't wish nobody to be in there at all, and I don't wish this upon nobody. Thank everybody. Appreciate it.
Tamika, I'm Octavius' mother. My son suffered from diabetes. He was insulin dependent. He also suffered from mental issues. He's been in and out of the system now for a long time. I got a call on the 28th, a day after my son was already gone. Trying to figure out why didn't they call me the moment they found him unresponsive, like they would if somebody was shot and killed on the streets. My son was found unresponsive at 10:54 p.m. on Wednesday night. I was in the grocery store shopping Thursday around 1:30 in the afternoon. The sheriff called me. He said, hey, you Tamika Spriggs? I'm like, yes. Well, we have your son here. We arrested him on Friday in Temple City for an assault. So I'm talking to him like, okay, you know, you have my son. He started asking me all kinds of questions. Well, does Octavius have kids? No, he doesn't have any kids. Is he married? No, he's not married. He talked to me for 15 to 20 minutes while shopping around that grocery store. And then at the end of the conversation, he said, I'm sorry to tell you, your son passed away in his cell last night. And I still don't know the cause of death. When I called the coroner's office, a captain over there told me that the sheriffs had placed my son's autopsy report on hold. They deferred the autopsy report. I buried my son on Friday, the 20th, and I still don't know why he's gone. And if it had anything to do with diabetes, that should have been brought up in an autopsy. My son had a scar across his nose. He had a knot on the left side of his head. His nose looked smushed. And they're still not, right to this day, telling me anything. Nothing. I could imagine what happened. They told me he assaulted a nurse. He was disoriented. Maybe he needed his insulin. Then they told me that they got medical clearance from the Los Angeles men's, what is that? Over there on César Chavez. They took me to. Yes, they got a clearance. So my question is, if you guys had a clearance on Friday, how did my son pass away on Wednesday? And you guys don't know the cause of death. His parole officer, me and her have a good relationship. She told me to get my butt to California. She told me basically the system has failed my son and that she would be willing to help me in any way possible. She also told me that if my son was arrested on Friday, she told me to write these times down. He was arrested at 9:15 a.m. on Friday. They were supposed to notify me within 24 to 48 hours of him being arrested. He was at a parolee. She didn't find out that my son was incarcerated until the same day I found out my son was gone. So they're trying to sweep something under the rug. They're trying to do something, and I just want justice. I want to know why my baby is gone. I want to know. That's all I want to know.
So we have one more family.
Good evening. My name is Hazel Mcfadden. I'm here because my son, Leroy Browning, was murdered by the Sheriff Department December the 20th, 2 years ago. When they came to my house, they didn't ask me about my son because they had already murdered him. He had been shot 5 times, 1 time in the back and the other 4 in his upper chest. So when the officer came to my door, he asked me, he said, whose car is registered that we have on 47th and S at Taco Bell? And I said, that's my daughter's car. And he said, was your son driving it? I said, yes, he was. When he left here, he was driving it. They didn't tell me anything. They just said, there'll be someone coming back to talk to you about your son. So we waited and waited and waited. It got darker, darker and darker. I said, Leroy should have been home by now. He was on his way to pick his sons up, my grandsons, from my house. So when they came back, there were 2 officers, and they asked to come in. I let him in, and he says, well, I'm here to tell you that your son has expired. I said, what do you mean he's expired? He's dead. So I said, what happened? Could you tell me what happened? They said, no. Someone will be here at another time to explain to you what happened. My son was at the Taco Bell on 47th and R, 3 blocks away from my house. He stopped in Taco Bell, and when he got to the window, they were closed. So they said what happened, they tried to get him to respond to waking up because he had fallen asleep on the steering wheel. So they called 911 for the ambulance. The ambulance got there first. And then the sheriff came. And then the sheriffs told the ambulance to leave. And they left without my son's body. There was another ambulance that came after the shooting. And I asked him what happened. How did he go from being unconscious in the Taco Bell drive-thru to the parking lot where he met his death? No one would answer me. They had no answers for me. I have not heard anything from the sheriff department from that day to this one.
Wow.
I got the information from people that were around or worked inside a taco, and they wouldn't talk to anyone after the sun came up. They were told not to speak to anyone in regards to the incident that happened. So when I went around there to see where my son had been murdered in the parking lot, there was not one drop of blood. One drop of blood, there was none. And when we asked what happened, they said we were not allowed to talk about it. From that day to this one, they're still not talking about it. I want to know how he got from the drive-through to the parking lot where he met his death. I've been informed that they said there was a tussle between him and the sheriff department. Mind you, my son was about 5'5". He weighed 128 pounds. There were 5 police cars there. And through those police, he met his death. But 1 shot in the back and 4 in the upper body. And I still don't have yet to hear what happened to my son. My heart is broken because he leaves behind 2 sons and a daughter. And he was a very, very attentive and lovable father and son to us. He was my baby boy out of 5 children. I will never be able to replace him. And you know what? I had to come to grips with myself because I was not there. But he almost made it home. He almost made it home. And I would just like to say tonight, I hope it's the beginning of me finding out what really happened to my son, other than them telling me he went for the police officer's gun. But why was there a tussle when they said they placed him in the back seat of the police car? I want to know how he got from inside of the police car to meet his death in the parking lot. I hope that someone could answer that question for me.
What's up, everybody? My name is Sky. Leroy Browning was my boyfriend. We were together for 10 years and we have 2 sons together. My oldest son is 7 right now, and my youngest son, or my middle son now, is 4. But at the time of his shooting / killing, they were 6 and 2. And man, I've been having crazy days. Like, it still affects me right now. You can tell by the way I'm dressed. Like, it still affects me. It affects my kids. Like how the young man who was killed's family said the police, they come and they sit by the house or whatever. They do that to our family as well. But then my sons, like, you know, they're scared of the police. Like, they panic. They hyperventilate because they're like, oh my gosh, like, the police gonna kill me? Like, you feel me? It's a weird ongoing process. Like, being in this room tonight, like, I feel so strong though because everybody is going through something similar. I mean, it's super whack about the whole thing, and hopefully we can do something to change it for real, and not for fake.
First of all, my name is Selena Coleman, and I want to thank everybody for being out here. And I want to thank the panel for participating. Most of these individuals here I work with. I want to thank you, Patrisse, for coming out here and pulling us all back together, because this didn't start today. And let me start over. I don't know what you came to do. I don't know what you came to do, but I came to set things straight. All right. I came to set things straight. I was going to do it a little different, but we got kids in the room, so I had to clean it up. Leroy Browning is the reason I'm in Antelope Valley. And I say that because he had a relationship with my daughter, that's Sky. I started my own nonprofit organization in 2004. It's called Power Positive. We teach youth the negative effects of bad behavior. I created this shirt that I'm wearing. I have 15 different colored shirts. They all say the same thing in the back. They say responsibility. Respect every single person, oppose negativity, stay intelligent, believe in learning and in teaching youth and yourself. The message on the back of the shirt is for knuckleheads. I was a knucklehead. I had my first daughter at 13. When I was 21, I was in Maryland, where they're planning on changing Maryland into the women's jail. And when I was in Maryland, I was 21 years old. My daughter died from sickle cell anemia. She was 7 years old. Leroy Brown was in my life for 10 years. My daughter died from something natural. I couldn't be mad at nobody but God. Yes, I questioned him, and I wonder why, because I was a knucklehead, like I said. I was smoking, drinking, doing everything. I changed my life. I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking. I walked myself into the jailhouse and said, I'm trying to change my life. I didn't know that God was going to slap me and really change my life, because when I came home to my baby on a slab. So I say all of that to say this. When Leroy Browning got killed by the police, it changed my life again. But the difference this time is I got to sit back and I got to analyze it and see it for what it was, because I had already been through it. Because when I came home from jail after losing my baby, I was blessed to have a husband at home that loved me and that was there because I ran wild and I didn't know myself. And he helped me find myself, and I'm back. But to see that, I got to witness my daughter firsthand go through the destruction of losing somebody who was the livelihood of her family, who took care of her and her 2 boys. And then I got to see my 7-year-old grandson a week ago. His mom and dad did music together, and she got a little show, and she played her music, or their music, excuse me, on the radio show, and we was listening to it. And my 7-year-old grandson was quiet, and he was listening, and he knew that that was his mom and his dad. And my 4-year-old grandson really couldn't comprehend it, because he doesn't have much memory of his dad, because his dad been gone off this earth as long as he had him in his life. And to see the destruction of a whole family, and not just one family, 2 families, because what it did is split my daughter, new family, the Browning family, who she used to do everything with. And now they really can't even have a good conversation. And it's sad, because these 2 young men that's gonna grow up, they got 2 separate families when they had one solid family before he got killed. And having my first daughter, I had her at 13 years old. The problem is our kids are lost. And when I met Leroy, I looked at him and I seen me. And I said this before and I'll say it again. Leroy got killed at the age of 30. I didn't change my life until I was 30. So he still had a chance to change his life. And when I say I changed my life at 30, I changed my life. I sold drugs. I took 2 keys of cocaine on airplanes when I was a minor because I was hungry and I wanted to feed my family. And I refused to sell myself. So for a female, do I choose to sell dope or do I sell myself? Well, I thought I took the higher route and I sold dope. But the reality of it is when you learn that what you did was wrong to get where you at and you know better, you do better. And my daughter taught me that because I didn't always know better. But as I grew and as I learned to do better. But everybody don't have that chance. Leroy definitely didn't have that chance because he got killed by the police at 30. And I have some facts, and I know that he was shot in the back at close range, and it tore through his body. And I knew that he was 63 inches long. I mean, what's tall, yeah, 63 inches. And when you get to really doing the math, that's not a big person. Not at all. And to weigh 128 pounds. And I've had back surgery. I had 3 back surgeries. I'm gonna give y'all some facts about Mr. Browning and then we're gonna end this. A year and a half before he was killed by the police, he was in a car accident. He was in a Cadillac. The Cadillac flipped over, it looked like a Mustang. He broke his upper back and his lower neck. And he had 3 or 4 vertebrae in his lower neck broke and 4 vertebrae of his upper back. And all of that was fused together. I had surgery March 27th of this year on my neck. If I walk too long, if I stand too long, my neck gets tired. And I only had 1 fusion. So for the police officers to really say he put up a fight and did all this when he was definitely outnumbered and his small stature, he could have been in a jail. He could have been with a case. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't have had to bury him. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And thank you for giving me my energy back and fueling me because since Leroy's death, we had a lot of deaths in our family. And we're still healing. And like my baby said, it's still affecting her. And I have to be her foundation and her support. But to witness this as a parent and to see your grandkids and your kids hurt, knowing the journey, knowing where it all came from, I just say, I hope you guys don't fall off. I hope everybody brings a friend or bring 2 friends and we build this because things are not going to get better before they get worse. That's right.
I just want to thank all of them for sharing their testimony about what happened with their family. And collectively, we're going to work together to get answers to these families and support to these families because this is really not okay. You know, that weighs on everybody's feeling that. How would you feel if that happened to your family members? So collectively, we're going to work together and rally around these families and get the answers and support for them. Danae, where are you? We're going to have Danae come up and kind of sum it up, and then we're going to find out how you can join this coalition that we can continue to build and get together to make change. And then we're going to have a little question and answer. And then we have a little dinner for you guys. And you can talk to any of the panelists about questions, concerns, directions. But I hope all of you signed in. I hope if you are on social media, you checked in so that we can get back to you and we can have additional conversations. Do we have the sign-in list around here somewhere? Yeah. Danae, where are you? So make sure you sign in. If you're online, check in. And then we'll tell you how you can join the coalition as well.
Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Naya. Or or I go by Naya. My name is actually Danae. I'm an activist in my own right. I go out in the community, I try to help out. My first way of helping and reaching back is through music to pretty much enlighten people about what's going on in our community. And I just want to say the reason I kind of got passionate about this is just being a black person, period. You find that you are in a place that a lot of people don't like you for just being who you are. I've been in a car with my brother celebrating something and been pulled over at the peak of happiness and guns drawn on us just because we were driving in a car and there was people with hats on, so it becomes criminal to wear a hat. I had a best friend that I grew up with, and he was in prison. He was epileptic, and he had some type of altercation, and they wired his jaw shut, and he had a seizure and drowned on his own vomit. This is a guy who I knew since I was 1 year old and went to prom with, you know. So it comes and it sneaks up on you and it creeps and it bites you in your own backyard. So if you're not active and doing something, you can find some way to participate. Like the young lady said back there, not for fake, but for real. You know, some way that you can do. I mean, you don't have to make a big wave, but any wave is important. So my song that I'm gonna minister today is gonna be a cappella. And it's basically speaking about people who talk a good game, but put no action behind it. And I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause because you're here putting action behind it. When we just talk about something, we're like doves. We're crying out for something, and it looks sad when you see the crying. But I want us to be more than crying doves. I want us to be people who stand up, rise up, and change this system. So it goes like this. Listen to them. They steadily talking, saying what they gonna do, but ain't no walking. It's a still silence, a still silence. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just so moved by these people's testimony. Oh man, it's heartbreaking. Listen to them. They steadily talking, saying what they gonna do, but ain't no walking. It's a still stance, a full circle, universal. We related when we vibe verbal, but actions never met the vocals. And if the efforts met the wordplay, man, it could be explosive. But just like the Bang Theory, it's fictional, just to see how far a strange fairy tale could really go. But you ain't got to fabricate to hang with me. I was shocked, I was stunned, I wanted to get angry, but then I realized, man, that's just what it is when you dealing with some kids. They're children. I grew up and handled biz, but it ain't the same, is it, fam? I wanna pull you up, you wanna snatch me down. I wanna change the world, you wanna wear a crown. But what's a throne if the kingdom been torn down? Hey, no sunshines, no blue skies, just tears in your eyes when doves cry. No sunshines, no blue skies, just tears in your eyes when doves cry. Listen, there's no sunshines, no blue skies, just tears in your eyes when doves cry. So let's not cry, let's do something about it. Amen.
We're going to take a few questions from the audience. You can ask a question and any of the panelists will answer those questions for you. And then we will tell you how you can join the coalition and join the fight to make change here in our community, to make it better for all of us. So do we have any questions? I don't think you need a mic, Cynthia. Go ahead.
My name is Cynthia Fairby. I am an activist. Everybody that knows me, look at me. I lost a lot of weight, right?
Yes. Come on.
I ain't gonna cry. I ain't crying. I am a mother, first of all. But I'm also a child of God. All right. I'm an activist. I'm a founder of One Way Up. I love children. Children is my thing. I too was arrested out here in Palmdale by Palmdale Sheriff Station. They arrested me. They falsified documents on me, and they locked me up. I am a diabetic. I am on insulin. I live off of insulin every day. So when they took me to jail, I went inside their sheriff station because they left a message on my phone. And I went inside their sheriff station to see what was going on. And they told me that I was stalking someone. I told them, I don't know what you're talking about. They put handcuffs on me and put me in the back. I asked them, can I have some water? Or we're gonna get you some water when we go in the back. I never got that water. They put me inside of a cell. So I started getting my praise on inside their cell. They started laughing. After they was laughing, they said, okay, we got to take you down to the hospital to make sure that you're okay to be booked. They took me to the hospital. That's when I got my water. They never checked for my diabetes. My diabetes was up way high. And they never checked in and put okay to book. From there, they took me back to the station. The next morning, they kept trying to feed me some food. I wouldn't eat it because my sugar was still up too high. They never gave me insulin. So when I went down to the Linwood station where they took me, they gave me water. They checked my sugar, my diabetes was up. Yeah, I could have went to a diabetic coma. From there, they took me to court. They told me, they kept sending me to court, they let me on an OR for months. Then they took me down, they had my court transferred to Norwalk from the Antelope Valley. So when they transferred my case to Norwalk, they thought that they tried to put a felony charge on me, and the district attorney said, what type of deal would she take? I say none. So when I went to court, they had a jury trial. In the middle of the jury trial, they had this lady come in there and lie on me. They had the sheriff lied on me. The judge said, he told the jury to go out the room after the sheriff testified. And he said, I cannot believe that extended funds was wasted on this case. Starting from the sheriff department to the district attorney's office is an embarrassment to the jurisdictional system. This case has been dismissed. Only God. I'm gonna tell you, only God. But this is the point I want to tell you. I have 5 children. I have 1 daughter. I have 4 boys. My baby boy was 6 months old and he passed away. So I had 3. My oldest son works in a hospital, Bixby Knowles Hospital. He works in the kitchen. My middle son is a chef. My younger son is still in school. 2 of my babies is in prison right now. My older son and my younger son. My older son, they put a burglary case on him when he was actually at work. They told my baby, if you don't take this 15-year deal, this 2-year deal, we're gonna give you 15 years. We're gonna give you 15 years in prison. That was the first case. So my baby took this deal, went to jail for 2 years and came home. Now, they did a burglary case, as Torrance police officers say, detectives. So now my babies, both of them, it's in prison. One of them, the oldest one, they said it was on a burglary case. They had a video of guys burglarizing this house. My oldest son never stepped a foot on the property. They do not have a picture of him, but they do have his car there because somebody else is driving his vehicle. So my oldest son never took a step on foot on the property. He never, it wasn't no weapons involved, no physical contact with a person, no nothing. They gave my baby 47 years to life. Talk to me because I talk back. You understand? The other ones who did the burglaries, who they seen on video, got 2 years. When I talked to the detective, King, I filed a complaint on him because he told me before court even started, before all this was going on, I had my NACP badge on because I was representing the NACP at that time because I had talked to the head, Ron, and he said, Cynthia, you could be over the case, you know, of my son. So this detective looked at my badge. I was the second vice president with the NACP. Detective looked at my badge, he looked at my face, he looked at my badge, he looked at my face, he said, he's done. I'm going to stick a fork in him. He's done. He's not going nowhere. I'll put a bill on him for $2.5 million. And he's not going nowhere. But at the time when my son had bail, his bail was only $5,000. And I had proof of it. Then he put a hold on my son for he couldn't get out, and my son was down on probation or parole. Do you understand what I'm saying? My son been out of jail for 10 years and working. You understand what I'm saying? Now my baby's in prison doing 45 years to life. 45 years to life because life is life. I don't care if it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Life, when they put that life on you, it's life. So 45 years of life compared to everybody else that got 2 years, somebody talk to me because I talk back. This is injustice. The crime is not with the time, and there is not justice for all.
Come on now, you better tell that.
My baby boy. They said, oh, he was in trouble. They put a murder charge on my son, a 187 first degree murder, when they didn't have a body or a victim. I go down to the police station and talk to their little detective. I said, where's my son? He said, oh, he back there getting interviewed. My baby was the only one shot. My baby was shot. Oh, they didn't care about that. My baby could have lost his life. They didn't care about that. So they told my baby, since you was in trouble before, but the priors did not fit, because the time he did not have, they tried to put a murder on him, an attempted murder on him, and that's not even under his MO. When you say murder, I probably go, okay, believe that, and I say, okay, I'm not proud of it, but I'm real. I'm a mother, I'm real. If he did it, then he did it. But then you make sure that you just don't get my son for anything. So they get my baby, I'm gonna give you 28 years. If you don't take the deal for 28 years, we're gonna give you life in prison. My baby took a deal for 28 years for something that he didn't even do. 28 years. My baby ain't nothing but 23 years old, so somebody talk to me. So I'm gonna go back to me now. Me has been a mother. And I'm gonna say this again. You know, a lot of y'all see me way thicker than this. That depression, that major depression, when it comes down to you, see, my mother was murdered when I was 19 years old, in my house, by my stepfather. I have no sisters or brothers. Only thing I have is my kids. You understand? I have nothing else but them. That's it. So it's like this. Me, as a mother, me as a diabetic, you know, I was eating two tablespoons of food a day just to take an insulin shot. Because I didn't want no food. I locked up in my room with my door shut. Didn't want to talk to nobody, didn't want to see nobody, because didn't nobody understand about what I had to go through with my son. And didn't nobody care. Because anybody I went to, and I have I stepped in so many courtrooms for other people. I didn't stand up for so many other people. I didn't stand up for hundreds and thousands of people. But when it came down to mine, then nobody cared. And that's the way I felt, and that's the way I feel now. You understand? So I shut everybody out of my life. I wasn't doing no nothing. I didn't even want to do the events that I've been doing. You hear what I'm saying? I lost so much weight because I wasn't eating. I didn't want to eat. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. I just shut my door and unlocked myself. I closed up in isolation because didn't nobody understand. Because my kids is all I have and they all I got, and how can I get my babies out of this situation? Eating two bites of food a day, drinking water, just to take an insulin shot just for me to live. Y'all understand that part now? Can y'all hear me now? Because see, when I was speaking about it in front of the courthouse, when I was talking about it in front of the newspapers, when I was going to this organization, didn't nobody hear me. So do you hear me now? Yes.
That's one of the things we need is support. You know, we need each other. We need to have answers. Did anybody have any questions that you wanted to ask the panel?
Hi, everyone. My condolences go out to the families that have been stricken by violence. For the sister that just spoke, my husband spent 25 years in prison. He was young when he went. My husband, this is my husband, Brother Edward. Now, I haven't known my husband for long. We've been married almost 2 years. But what he has told me is heart-wrenching. He went very young, and he didn't get out until he was in his 40s for something he did not do. All he prayed for was to see his mother before she passed. All praises due to Allah, he got to see his mother. All those years, as they say, there's always someone praying for us. And her prayers came true. And that sister that just spoke, there is justice. You just gotta keep your life in your hands in Allah, and He will show you the way. This man made a vow to Allah that he was gonna serve Him when he got out. He's been out 5 years, and he has served Allah faithfully. Now, I don't know what it's like to be in jail. I've never been involved in any kind of violence. All praise is due to Allah. But we here as the Nation of Islam, we're here to back each and every one of you up. Right. We follow the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and it's all about justice. And we mean to get it.
All right now.
And that's why we're here for you in the Antelope Valley. Our captain and our minister here are all here to back you up. And if you need us, we're going to be there because we are soldiers.
All right.
Okay, we're going to take one more question.
Can start with a question? It actually is a question. I'll turn it into a question just for you. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Lanya London. I'm one of the co-sponsors. Serenity Village Developments is a transition program for people in life transitions. And one of the things I want to see a comment or a question for each organization. The prison that they're proposing is for mentally ill or mental health conditions. As a clinician, I'm on the other side before they get there. That system isn't being utilized at all to prevent once they get in there. And so my question is, how are each of the organizations going to address the fact that these people have a health condition? Mental health is health. Can everybody say that? Yes. Mental health is health, okay? The brain is the most powerful part of your body. It controls everything else. If we're not taking care of it, it's not being taken care of, right? We're not being taken care of. So I'd like to hear how each organization plans to integrate the mental health conversation and the advocacy on that point. César had great stats, and so those are important. As a former president of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, we always get calls about people that are incarcerated that get lost because they're sick, and they just get lost in the system, and nobody knows where they are, and nobody knows that they're sick, and the family members are calling us on how to get the information, so we have a whole protocol. But each of these organizations, I would like to hear how you plan to address that component in helping the community. If you need assistance in your organizations to bridge that component, I'm here to do that, but I'd like to hear how you guys want to address that.
So thank you for the question. I think when it comes to mental health in our community specifically, not only do we not receive the services that we need before we get to crisis points, we don't have the conversations.
No, we don't.
But we also need something to have a conversation about. And the county has, for decades, at least since I came here in '94, has neglected to adequately fund the Department of Mental Health in this area.
Right. That's right.
We are getting people who have a diagnosable, treatable, counselable conditions, who are going through manic episodes, who are going through panic attacks, who are going through schizophrenic episodes that are treatable, preventable, and manageable. So what are we as LULAC, what am I and the community going to do to talk about mental health and to make this a conversation that we can have? Well, the first of all is to acknowledge that we have in our community. I'm a type 1 bipolar. Lots of people in the community need help with mental illness, and it is an illness. Our communities, there's statistics that show that Black men in inner cities have rates of PTSD that are higher than combat veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. We can find $3.5 to $5 billion to build a cage. We can find that money to give people care.
Thank you for the, I apologize. Thank you for the spirit of that question, and it's very valid. Number one, I think that, I'm a pastor from a church, and I see my brother Bishop here and a number of ministers, as well as people from the Nation of Islam. I think the church has to get deeply more involved in that. We do a lot of counseling, and trust me, we deal with a lot of issues. But I don't think we're trained to do that, so I think there are a number of ways that people actually can get trained on how to handle issues dealing with mental issues. The other thing I want to raise is when we formed the Community Advisory Council, one of the reasons why we did that and why it's now mandated by the Sheriff's Department is to try to address the issue before the issue gets in the criminal courthouse. So if a brother or sister is going through a mental problem, before it even gets to the district attorney, it's going to hit the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office then notify us. Or if the issue comes to us, then we notify the sheriff's office and say, this is a brother or sister that does not need to be involved in the criminal justice system. There's some mental issues here, and we know how to avert it. I think that's so critical, and that's why I'm encouraging all of you. I'm so sorry we don't have one here tonight, but the Community Action Advisory Council, they formed what's called Know Your Rights. They have pamphlets, and I'm sorry we don't have any tonight, but please contact the Sheriff's Office. You can get the pamphlets. Before a Sheriff officer comes to you and approaches you, you have a right to assert your rights, and you need to know what those rights are. And if they violate them, that's when you let us know. So that's one of the things that I think, as part of my church, we're certainly working on how we're going to address that. We definitely deal with counseling, but also I want to encourage people, get involved with your Community Advisory Council and know what your rights are.
I think that's a great question. I think, in fact, when I first heard, I was listening to KPFK some years ago, and I heard them call the Los Angeles County Jail something like the biggest mental institution or something. And you were the first person I called as soon as I heard it. I said, man, this is absolutely crazy. And we spoke about it. And another thing, man, was like a year or two ago, me and I think he left, man. Me and my brother Nick Uhuru, we went down to Los Angeles and we had organized a march through Skid Row. One thing that had happened, man, it was a brother named Brother Africa. He was an African dude who was mentally ill downtown LA, and the Los Angeles police murdered that man. We marched through downtown and hit a bunch of different spots where they had. We went to places and spoke where they shot these men down throughout downtown. One dude, he was on the roof of a building you know, I guess he was having an episode. He was tripping. He was on the roof of a building and 2 blocks away from where they killed Brother Africa on Skid Row. And they shot this man and he came tumbling down off of that building and fell down to the ground. So I think that it's great to now to say, what are we going to do about it? That's a good question, man, because first thing, we just have to make it a part of the conversation. And I think that's one step. What we've always said was that we wanted to bring the victims of this system, the victims of the police and the courthouse, into this movement, which is kind of difficult because they, you know, maybe on paperwork, on parole, or probation, and don't want to be out, you know, in the street with people like me and Cliff holler, you know, after the police and stuff. But as much as we possibly can, we need to bring those people, you know, into the movement. And there's a stigma around it. There's a fear around mentally ill people. So, you know, it's just like, you know, and the fear doesn't start or stop with the police. It's society-wide. You have a society that's afraid of black people. You have a society, and they're afraid of mentally ill people just like they're afraid of black people. And the fact is, we don't have a place for them in this society, so their lives simply just don't mean as much to people. So it's easy to shoot them down, just like it's easy to shoot down a black man, you know, because you literally afraid of him. So I think, you know, now what do we do? That's a good question. I think this is a start having a conversation about it because really I don't know. But I'm glad that it's being discussed, and we definitely need to bring these folks and their families into the movement.
I think it's a great question. I think what needs to happen though, because this is SPA 1 in terms of county language, what we've been doing through our nonprofit Helper Foundation is providing comprehensive training to several of the county mental health providers. And what we found out is a lot of the clientele, we don't even call them clients, we call them participants. A lot of those who was mandated to serve this population don't know how to deal with it. So we have a training academy where we have trained over 1,500 service providers. And what I've been asking for through the mental health department, which is the county, is that SPA 1 coming on board. I think it's Hathaway Sycamore up here and Penny Lane. And so for whatever reason, I think we heard it on the front end of this meeting, is this area has been forgotten. And so what we've been doing is going in and training those who have their hands on our babies and on our young people. We're teaching them how to deal with the culture. We're teaching them how to deal with the post-traumatic stress disorder, which is beyond just traumatic experiences. This stuff is 426 years old. And if we don't address it from the root, we're going to keep having this conversation. We cannot expect to get justice from a rattlesnake.
Exactly.
If a rattlesnake
If a rattlesnake coming here right now, his aim and purpose is to put venom in something. So we're not going to get justice.
What I would humbly suggest is that we unite and pray to God, however you see him, if it's our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, if it's Jehovah, if it's Yahweh, if it's that tree outside. Okay, whatever your faith is, that's fine. But vengeance is mine, says the Lord.
Look, when we train these service providers, here's how they look at us when we first come in.
Who are these people? They don't have degrees like us. What qualifies them to train us? And so we have subject matter experts in every subject related to how that service provider or how that agency should be handling our people. Once we're done, it's the after conversation that lasts another 2 hours. And so we're hoping to get SPA 1 on board. Okay, but right now we're in conversation with the county. They have seen our presentation, they've seen our training, they like it. And we done already trained over 1,500 of them, but that's in SPAs in South Central. We're trying to get this SPA 1 on board. But let me say this in my closing. We heard a lot of the pain today. I have a question for the audience. Are you gonna line up, where is Waunette at? With this woman after tonight? Because we can have this conversation. We gotta get behind her. Don't worry about where you're coming from. Don't worry about your affiliations, where your church is at. If your pastor ain't with it, so be it. You be with it. Encourage your pastor to get with her. Because for 426 years of being in America, we have not received any justice. So when you saw Colin Kaepernick take a knee, it had nothing to do with the flag. He was tired of hearing about the police killing our people. But now they done made it so political, it's about the flag. But I'm here to say this. We haven't got no justice under this flag for 426 years. And nor did we get any justice under the Confederate flag. So we respect the flag, but this is a symbol of slavery, suffering, and death. At the end of the day. But we respect that flag because it represents a sovereign nation. But at the end of the day, we have to unite, man. The AV, the county people don't care too much about this area. It takes too long for them to get here. And the only way they're gonna hear us, bro, if we unite. If we unite behind Sister Waunette, bring your affiliation to the table, then let's sit down and come together for the families that's seeking justice. But I just have to say this, and I hope it's not bad news. Don't expect no justice, because we're dealing with a rattlesnake. Don't expect no justice if a hyena come up in here laughing at us, but their goal is to do what? Tear some flesh. We're not going to get no justice from the sheriff department, because like Jesse said, we're dealing with white supremacy. The only, in my humble opinion, my closing, the only way we can really fight it is through our unity. Our unity is more powerful than an atomic bomb. That's the only way we're going to get justice. It's through our unity.
Ruth is going to talk from ACLU, and I'm also going to have Esther Lim from the Jails Project talk from ACLU.
First of all, I want to say that we're not anti-law enforcement, okay? We're anti-abusement from law enforcement. So plenty of us get ridiculed saying we're anti-law enforcement. We're always saying law enforcement is bad. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is let's hold them accountable for everything that they're doing. Okay. Another thing I want to say is what we've been doing is we've been working with a lot of the veterans. They have PTSD. I'm a military brat myself. I've gone to downtown with them to Miraloma to apply for benefits for people, for some of the veterans. Those people, the paperwork that is given to them with that explanation, it's not a piece of cake. It's not something that they can just fill out in an hour or two. It takes them a long time. Sometimes it takes them years for them to get their benefits. A very long time. And not only that, but some of them, I have a lot of deported veterans, believe it or not. We just came back from TJ, 75 deported veterans that we had to take food to. They're living in very poor conditions. The rats, people laugh, but when I say rats are complaining of the living conditions because they're living with rats. And we're going back in January because they don't have food, they don't have their benefits. Some of them have been over there for 20 years without getting their benefits. They don't get their medical treatment. So when they're going over there, they're not getting their medication. Right now we have one veteran that was deported, that was assaulted, and he has to pay $1,500 to get the proper treatment. Wow. Just so he can have his heat replacement because he doesn't have medical attention. And he's a Vietnam veteran actually. So he's 73 years old. So what I want to say is what we're doing for the jail, we need to start with education. We need to start holding law enforcement accountable. The justice system. We need to utilize our voice to stand up for those that cannot speak for themselves.
Hi, good evening everyone. My name is Esther and I work at the ACLU. I'm the director of the Jails Project. First off, I want to thank Patrisse and your auntie for providing this space for us to talk about this. The ACLU is a proud coalition member of JusticeLA now.
I also want to thank the family members who share their story. For you to share your loss with us, for you to share your courage, is something that inspires, something that motivates, and something that should be in the front of our minds, not in the back of our minds, in front of our minds for us to continue to do this work, to continue to demand police transparency and accountability so that we're not gathering here to talk about another person who died, another person who was shot, another person who was beaten inside the jails. No more.
Right.
One of the things that the ACLU is doing is we see this $3.5 billion price tag. That price tag is actually $5 to $7 billion.
Really?
This is just the construction costs. We haven't talked about the bonds. We haven't talked about interest. We haven't talked about operating costs for a facility that's supposed to house people who are mentally ill. These are jails, right? Jails are jails. Jails are not mental health treatment. You do not get, You do not get well in a cell, right? You do go crazy in there. I also I'm a social worker by education, so when I see mental health inside the jails, it's not mental health. We're talking about trauma-inducing. It exacerbates trauma. We're talking about people who have gone through trauma, who enter a setting, who enter a facility that causes more trauma by the setting itself, by the jails itself, by the custody staff who are there, right? And then this trauma doesn't just happen inside the cell, it also impacts our community. Yeah. Look around us, why are we here? We're here because we've been traumatized by law enforcement, and we're saying no more. Right. So some of the things that we are doing along with Patrisse and along with community organizations who are part of the JusticeLA Now Coalition is we are not only saying we don't want any more jails, but we're also pushing for diversion. We're saying that there are people inside our jails who shouldn't belong in there. Those who are mentally ill, they don't get well in there. They need to go into treatment programs that are in the community. And you're right, there are not a lot of resources. When we talk about resources, a lot of those go over to law enforcement. It goes to the squad cars. It goes to more probation officers. It does not go back into the community. So, I'm just going to keep it short because I know that there are other people who probably want to answer this, but this is just at least one of the things that the ACLU is doing so that we can say no more jails. We need our people to get well. We need our community to stop being traumatized by law enforcement.
We need to respect folks' time, and there's dinner here, but there's also the Octavius's family actually came from Bakersfield. So we need to make sure they get back to Bakersfield. I want to make sure Lyft and Uber is still working right now. Get them home. And if you have more questions for the panelists, totally come up to us afterwards. Let's eat, let's check in. But I just want to have everybody give yourselves a round of applause for coming out tonight on a Monday night to have these conversations. If you haven't signed up for the JusticeLA Coalition, we'll make sure to put the sign-up sheets here. And we'll be checking with folks to see if you want to join the coalition and get more folks on board. And I know that there was a proposal to have monthly meetings for JusticeLA here locally, so we can talk about doing that too. Thank you all so much for coming out.
You guys, Bishop wanted to say one thing and then everybody can go and get something to eat, okay?
Thank you very much. I just want to...
Hold on 1 second, guys, please.
I will take but a few moments. Minister Ansar really kind of said what I wanted to say, and that is to say this, that many of us who've been here a long time, I've been here coming up on 53 years, and I know some of the old pat, and I'm so honored and thankful to see many of the younger people who are taking the lead on this and making something happen. And so what I want to make mention of, TCAL, this small group of guys got together and they gathered data. I'm going to get 2 or 3 years. Is that about right? And I was able to help them with that part. But they didn't move out and pull the hammer until they had the data that they need that couldn't anybody deny. So my urgent is this, that we join up with Sister Cullors and whoever the team is, and let's filter all of our data through them. And let us not become little dudes all over the place doing our own little stuff. That's all I'm trying to say. God bless you.
Okay, so we have things, we have food for you to eat. Help yourself. Please talk to any of the panelists and make sure you sign up on the sheet or go to our link to sign up to be a part of the coalition.